Hey, what's up everybody? Today we're going to talk about my workstation, the workflow, etc. On my Twitch streams and in comments and stuff. Andrew Masters came through here recently. Check this link to see a tour of this studio. That's fantastic. Follow him, sub him, all that stuff. It's great content. The question that comes out a lot is, what is all this stuff? I really like, people really seem to like the way everything is just right here. And I'm just ready to make stuff all the time. So, I like to make music. I like audio engineering too, obviously. I'm pretty good at it. I do mixing professionally, plug. But when it comes to my stuff, I don't want to come in here and have to reinvent the wheel every time that I do things. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the things that are around me, why they're around me, and what I use them for. The only thing, what we're not going to talk about here, I'm not going to show you the exact details of kind of like, what I use each thing for and how I use it. That content is available to you at a very good price. Alwaysandy.co, plug. Hit my website up. There's a course there. It's called Pro Streaming for Musicians. 22 chapters. They're all like $10, $20, $30 max. Most are like 10. And you can buy the whole thing, you can buy it in sets, you can buy one at a time, but that kind of content, how songs are put together and how you can use the controllers and your workspace to enhance your performance and really like get things going, that stuff is there, alwaysandy.co. So let's talk about the things that are around me. This video will not, I don't know why I'm doing this with my hands today. Look at that, woo, I got spinsies going on with the hands. I'm not gonna do any editing on this video. Because that's too many uhs is what that is. But that's how my course is. There's no editing in the entire 22 chapters. And you're like, well, that sounds terrible. That's going to be an awful mess. Well, that's kind of the point about streaming and being able to do a live performance. You should be able to do all the things that you need to do right here, live. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to attempt to do that, right? I have pulled down from the way top back corner this little camera here, so I can give you a bit of a closer look at all these things. So like that's enough of me running my mouth. Let's get into it. The first thing, let's talk about, I'm reaching over and I'm touching this thing. This is the Stream Deck. It's a controller. So this thing allows me to control everything that there is here that's going on with the cameras. And you can see I've got a couple of icons that are, like my own icons set there, but that's how you control OBS. If we go over here to the other side of my workstation, we see the M1, the Mac Mini M1. It's the monitor for it. The actual M1 is down there in that rack. But that's the monitor for it, and OBS is open. That's what we're using for everything. So this thing over here gives my hand tactile control over the things that it needs to control in OBS. So it's very important. It's the first thing we'll talk about. Let's back up a little more. Let's see what we can do like y'all. Like this should probably be over here since my little screen's there, right? Now, my workstation itself. People want to know, what is this? Where'd you get it? Like what's happening? It seems to be pretty custom, seems to be pretty just for you. And that is absolutely true. You look up here, even from the overhead view, what do you see of my desk? You don't see much at all, kind of too much. It's sticking out a little on the sides here actually. But that's because this whole thing is just custom built stuff that I built. So it started out as I needed a stand for, let's do this view again. I needed a stand for this giant keyboard. This keyboard's very old. By the way, that's a logo. That was done, I think I designed most of that, part of that or something. It's one of my clients. But in any event, we should probably make me a little bit smaller so you can see a little bit more. Which, that leads me to point out, part of this custom furniture we have here is the little mouse fly out thing. This little floaty mouse desk. right? So that's just me trying to be more ergonomic, I guess, or just not liking to be uncomfortable. You know, I like to have, as you sit here in your studio, you're up on this computer and your natural position for your hands is going to be like this, right? So that's where the mouse should be. It shouldn't be up here. That, you know, now I've got my arm all raised up. This is not ergonomic. It's going to lead to problems in my shoulder. It's going to lead to all kind of problems. And so, but that's what I see most of the time when I see like desks, people are reaching up. So that was the first thing that came around, was like, I need something that's going to fix that, to where that will be down there. So that little shelf, this is one of the first things that, you know, was kind of custom about me doing my furniture. This down at the bottom here, and you can see, yes, all my paint's kind of been getting worn off. Yeah. I need to do some touch up here, but each one of these sides is a standard 19-inch rack. This one still has the ears in it. There's nothing really in it. That power supply is not even in use. The few things that I have in a rack are over here, which is not much that gets used. There's a preamp, a Hafler T3 preamp, guitar preamp, the main audio card device, the Focusrite Red 4 Pre, and the patch bay gets a little use occasionally. But so, but that stuff used to be, you know, all over here. So what we'd have in what was initially built was just this square thing to set this giant keyboard on, which I've had for a really long time. I do love the keyboard. It's getting a little noisy though. I have to replace it soon. So, but you know, and then this came on. So that's generally the workstation. At times I've had a second keyboard on top of this, and to accommodate that I just simply put another piece of wood with a couple of 2x4 lifts that had enough space for the keyboard to fit under, and there it was. So this is all just regular wood. It's wrapped in a black sheet, basically. You know, it's pretty lo-fi for serious lo-fi for sure. But that's perfect for me. I don't need a lot of desk, you know, like that's kind of one thing. It's not that I haven't looked at desks. I've looked at desks, man. I've looked at everybody's desks, especially when I was building this studio a couple years ago. I really looked at everybody's desks. I got everybody's plans. I mean, I had, you know, kind of ideas, but like, it's just none of them were right. They're too big. Like, I don't need all of that desk. And if it's a smaller, more trimmed down version, I don't want to pay $700 for something that I can build in, like, you know, or maybe I can't build that, but I can build a thing that looks okay and takes care of my needs in a couple of hours in one trip to Lowe's, you know? These are just boards. You go into Lowe's, they have pre-cut boards in lengths like 6 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, and they may be a foot wide, a foot and a half wide, whatever you need. That's all you need, some boards. Cut them to length, get some screws, put it all together, off you go. If you want to find out how to build things like that, YouTube, do it all day long. You find out how to make how do you make two pieces of wood go together? YouTube's got you covered. Take advantage of all that stuff if you're that kind of person. Obviously, I am. So this particular piece of furniture, I mean, it really, guys, this is awful. And honestly, I would have, my studio tour with Andrew Masters came about so fast, I probably would have rebuilt some things or did some construction, but like, you know, look at this piece holding up the keyboard, the actual keyboard support is just one old janky piece of broken wood that's just like probably screwed on to the outside of that. Yeah, but you know, that's like in an area of the studio that's seldom seen by anything. You know, you just kind of can't tell that that's even happening down there, especially when you consider that generally I'm in the dark. I'm always in the dark. All the lights on like this is insane. I don't really know what to make of this. Is right now there's too many lights on. But so on this apparatus, we could say, we house the Raven, which is our touchscreen, which sits on this, you know, top shelf. And the top shelf is really just simply like mounted on the back side. I don't know, it's kind of too dark to see anything, but it's just kind of, you know, mounted on the back side with enough of support back there to, you know, come out over top of the keyboard, because as you can see, this keyboard has a whole part that we're not using or seeing at all. It's totally hidden. All the knobs and faders that are supposed to be on this keyboard, they're like all up under there. You can't see them. Don't look at them. Don't think about them. They're not there. But so the Raven sits up there. A couple of things are sitting up here. Obviously, this over here is our PreSonus monitor station monitor controller, which is also super important. I think, you know, if you're mixing and monitoring and doing the things that I'm doing. This is the preamp over here for the microphone that I use, the Slate modeling microphone, the VMS1. That sits there because I often manipulate this volume. This is great to have this tactile control kind of over your microphone. Look, oh my goodness, I can totally fool with that very easily, which I like. Above that is a little monitor that's not on. It's tied to this computer here. And the point of that is only to display my song list when I'm streaming. So on that, I will just see a small list of songs. I could turn it on and show you. And you're like, hey, Andy, how is this, you know, what's going on? It seems very, you know, perfectly sat there. How are you doing that, man? Let me show you how I'm doing that. I'm just going to show you the song list. I wonder if I have one open still. I do. So when song list is open, I can pull open the queue. And you can, you know, it's blurry, but you can kind of make out what's going on there. So from my view right here, it's just right there, and I can lean over a little bit and see exactly. I can also usually I bump the font size on that a little bit. So you make that bigger. And anyways, so that's being held up by, wonder if we can see. Can you see that little, it's one of those camera air bulb squeezer things, right? I'm terrible at holding this camera. There we go. So that little air bulb squeezer guy is just simply propped up in a notch on the back of that screen. It's just perfect to sit there. Like, there's no need to do anything else. There we have it. And that's that little guy. As we move down on through here, this shelf over here kind of just does computer stuff. There's the network router for the Dante system. Everything in here is running on a Dante audio network. So that's where that is. That's a router and a little USB hub. That's actually the Wi-Fi that runs in the studio so that things don't have to, you know, get connected to a network. Over here, this thing is for sound effects and stuff mostly. Like, I don't know if it's turned on at the moment. Oh, it's not in this project at all. But I'll have different things from movies and stuff for stream when I'm doing streaming stuff. And that's usually what that's down there for. Rarely gets used. Below that, that is a 70 volt amplifier. It runs 70V audio, which means like daisy chaining audio stuff. So outside of the building, around the decks, and I have trails in the woods. We have a couple of miles of trails here. This system feeds anything that's on my workstation out to the property, because I like to have music when I'm working. It's a big property, there's a lot of work to do. I like to listen to music while I'm out there, not necessarily in my earbuds. So, you know, that accommodates that. Keep on moving down. We get off of it to the floor, and yeah, I was going to point out earlier how awful this is. Like, this whole thing wasn't tall enough, so it's just sitting on some bits of 2x4s that two of them that I stacked. 2x6s maybe. On both sides. No one's ever said a thing or noticed. They probably noticed and they're like, we shouldn't say anything. Let's be nice to this tool. Down here on the floor, pacer, trigger, couple of sustain pedals, couple of volume pedals. So this one, actually, this one's the normal, sustains a piano like you would expect it to do. This one is kind of fun. This does. In conjunction with this. Yeah, I have too much fun with this world. But so, you know, you have controllers that do various things, and this is my wild card controller, you could say. And as we go through this stuff, you know, always it's good to think about like how this stuff applies to your workflow. I am going to talk about that before I'm done here, but as I'm going through it, you should keep that in mind. I mean, it's important. All of this stuff like will apply to your workflow. Like, watch. Let's go back to this little guy. And then we have, yeah, so the pedals. This is always a volume pedal for my guitar. So especially if you're streaming, you're doing live performance type stuff, you gotta have control over like the volume of your guitar. You have a solo coming along, like you gotta be a little louder, but the rest of the song, pull back. You wanna fade into the mix, you know, like we have this rare opportunity, especially if you choose to use streaming as one of your venues, as I do. It's my main venue for playing music now. We have this awesome ability to stream your exact production like that you've made on your DAW right out to the world. So I take advantage of that to the fullest, and every bit of all that comes out. So all of my things are purposeful. You know, each one is definitely here for a reason. Next over, after the pedals and stuff, like, and this pedal's a while, I should say. This expression pedal is not even used hardly ever. It's just there if I need it. When I have used it, I like to use it for like expression on Spitfire instruments, the ones that let you control dynamics with like the mod wheel. I'll map that to that controller and shazam, do it with my feet. Then we've got a rack of guitars over here. This is a Les Paul, just briefly, a Les Paul, a Kiesel, an Ibanez 7-string, an Ibanez 8-string, and a bass. Notice I'm sitting right in my chair here. Oh, that was a leg shot. That's what that was. We'll call that a leg shot. The guitars are totally in my reach, and that's absolutely on purpose. They need to be totally in my reach from where I'm sitting. All of these things need to be. So that's got our right side. I guess we've of course got a monitor in case we're doing like, you know, some mixing and stuff. We're not in headphones. And over, got all this stuff. Now over here, great topic of conversation is not the push itself, but what is the push sitting on? Dude, where did you get this thing? What is it? So, sorry for the squeaky chair. I don't know what this thing is. I don't know where I got it. All I know is that I have two of them, and you can't have either one of them. Not for $1 million, you cannot have one of these stands. I think they were mixer stands, is what I think. I do know on the back of it, I don't know if you can see or tell. Yeah, you can. Look on the corners here. You can see where I cut something off. I believe these had bars sticking up the back, and that these were mixer racks. So if you're looking for something right like that, that might be where you start. Mixer rack. I think that's what that is, with its back braces cut off. Totally, completely invaluable tool. It gives me tactile controls always immediately right here on my left hand. You know, I'm sitting here and right there. They're just right there. And what controls are available? Volume for all my channels. Ableton is what I use primarily. Those faders, that's not a lot of real estate on the screen. You can see it's that tiny little triangle is what you got to get to adjust the volume. So for me, I'm using a Raven. I touch a lot. That's a very specific touch. Or I got to grab my mouse and find it with the mouse, and that's going to be not the greatest thing either. But over here, I can, you know, with a couple of moves, and I'm controlling volumes with these knobs, which is much, much better. Much better way to do it. You know, or I'm stopping or starting, you know, all together. A many huge variety of things this controller will do. It's ridiculous. You notice I have headphone hangers, you know, right here. I've got a bunch of those actually all around the place, which, you know, me putting this camera on my leg leads me to show you, look, So you'd think this was, you know, your average rack of whatever, and this guy's really good with his wires and stuff. Now, that's where they're all hidden. It's the hidden mess of wires no one wants you to see. Fortunately for me, when you come away from that a little bit, it disappears pretty quickly into the back of everything. So, yeah, the wire game is not the best. The problem is between the network stuff and the multiple computer stuff and the inability with a lot of cameras, you can't do like very much of an extension, a USB extension cord. Because of all those things, like that's why, sorry, that music was loud. And by the way, this is just a loop running from Ableton. You can see the one blinking. It's the middle of this song, which is 21st Century Digital Boy, if you hadn't figured that out yet. But anyways, I cleaned up the cables kind of as much as I could. That was as good as I could get it, you know, because they're just not long enough. But anyways, you've probably been noticing next that yes, we have this gear rack over here. That's also a custom built piece of furniture. It's not the best, most attractive piece of furniture, but it totally gets the job done. That same wood I was talking about earlier, go get some of that. Spec it up, make your little thing, screw it together, put you some rack in the ears in there, and you've got a nice little rack to sit your stuff on. I needed somewhere to put my computer, and I was like, we'll just put the gear in there too. Notice next to that, we then have this fancy little thing. So when I started streaming and doing all that, I was like, man, I've really got to have the ability to see this, what's happening with the stream stuff. I need to have this like here somewhere, you know, close. And I moved it over there on a little stool, and I was like, okay, I think that will do just fine. We'll just put this over there, and then I can just glance, you know, a quick glance to the left. I can make sure everything is cool, and we're good. We're going on. So what I ended up doing was just, I looked around, I said, hey, you know what? We got this thing over here. We got this thing over there. Why don't we just, well, I didn't even do that. I just built it with a leg. That's what that is. I was thinking I had screwed it into both sides. No, I didn't do that. So I just cut a piece of wood, painted it black, made it at an angle, put a little brace under there to support it, screwed that into the side, set the shelf on top, and set the monitor, and that's the Scarlett, which is the sound card for the stream machine. Set it up there, and off we go. I think I said earlier the actual iMac, or the Mac Mini, there it is. You can see it is in that rack space. That empty rack space in that rack. So that's the entire stream rig. So what I do, I discovered pretty quickly with the streaming stuff, I did it all from one computer for, you know, I don't know, many months, maybe almost a year. And you can't, OBS is a huge resource hog. It just is such a huge resource hog. That's hard to say, resource hog. So you can't do much like that you're used to doing in Ableton. And I just got to the point where I was like, man, I can do so much more, and it just won't let me do it. So I introduced the Mac Mini into the system. It's so worth it. Find some things if you can't afford to add a $600 computer, which, you know, maybe $700 with the monitor, $800 with the sound card. So if you can't afford, you know, close to $1,000 or $500, $700, get some used gear. Who knows? Sell something. Look around. Be creative. You know, like that's what I did. I looked around and was like, what is around this place that I can move? Because I need that, and it changed everything. It's absolutely worth it. Absolutely, it changes everything, because what that gives you is you don't have to do all the goofy sound routing that people have to do when they're doing all of this on the same system between their DAW and the OBS. You don't have to do any of it. You know that what you're hearing is what they're hearing. You know it. It is. It's, you know, and I know it because I'm feeding it directly out of my monitor station, out of my sound card, basically, over to that sound card and right in the front inputs, right? So I can see the signal is there, I can see it's strong, etc. And I know that anything that I hear, they're going to hear. Now, that said, I do have set up on my sound card, which is, again, the Focusrite Red 4Pre. It has multiple outputs. It even has two headphone jacks, discrete jacks on the front. 2 headphone outputs on the front of it. which I make use of both of them. One is my normal headphone, the other one is my VMS virtual monitoring headphones, virtual, whatever. They're amazing. Oh my God. So, but one thing that I do is I have 2 mixes, I guess you could say, coming out of the whole thing. We've got mix, the main mix, which is mix on 1 and 2, and then on 3 and 4 of the Red 4 Pre. I'll show you. Let's get this software out so you can see. There's my Ableton setup if you hadn't seen that before. But so 3 and 4 will be a mix just for me, and the 3 and 4 mix includes all outputs 1 to 4, whereas the 1 and 2 mix only has outputs 1 and 2. And so you say, well, what's the difference? So our custom mix, mix A, you can see playback 1 and 2 is what's in the middle here. The text is kind of small. Playback 1 and 2 is coming through here. It's not muted. Dante is also coming through, but we're not using Dante right now. But the rest of these you can see are muted. If I go to mix B, oh, look at that. They're not muted. So if I turn my metronome on, you can see that's clicking. But you're not hearing that because 3 and 4 don't go to OBS. Only I hear the clicking. So that's kind of an integral part of streaming and working with loops and stuff and doing all the things. I do a lot of recording of this stuff on stream too. So it's important that I can hear the click, but you don't want everybody else to hear the click. There's lots of things like that. And that's accomplished through the Q out on, you can see on my Ableton project right over here, Q out is set to 3 and 4, main out is set to 1 and 2. But that's the kind of thing that probably you can learn more about in my streamer course, alwayshandy.co. And so that gets us around to, I'm like, we've got sound cards, furnitures, the headphones. Of course, like I said, I do separate. I have both of my headphone things are in use, so you saw maybe or you didn't, I don't know. Down here hanging on this side of the push cart are the VSX headphones. VMS, I can't talk. That view is terrible though. Like, wow, you go down there, if you do like, you know, cable hell. We don't like cable hell. Let's keep the camera up here. Nice. So you can see down here, we have some VMS headphones. No, those are VSX headphones. Yes, there's too many letters with all this Slate stuff. That's what we should tell Steven Slate. Too many letters. Give him names, right? I mean, it's okay. If you're a Slate user, I mean, we do have our own avatar as like a company president guy, which is wild because I see him sometimes and I'm like, dude, is it real? Is he real? I don't know. So back to the show. That's pretty much everything. Obviously computers, you know, hard drives and different things like that. Up here you have my main camera, which does sit on a camera slider. So there's a little, you put the battery on and there's a little remote control and you just turn it on and it slides from side to side. And it keeps, you know, it rotates itself while it's sliding. So give you like a heads-on view. As it gets further to the left, it points itself further to the right. Try not to like, that thing's loud. Just move it. But yeah, you see that? Kind of moves itself. So it's a neat little system. It gives you a lot of just a better some movement in your shot. Some movement, you know. So on top of that slider sits a Sony A7 III. I do highly recommend this camera or one like it. It does very, very, very good in low light, which is why I have it. Because you'll notice in this studio, there's not a lot of light going on. We have these two pot lights in the ceiling. Those are on. The ones in the front, you can see those are not on. Those are unscrewed. That's how little I like light. I do not like light, extra light. When I'm streaming and playing, this light right here is the only light that's on. It's a 35 watt something or another. Now, because of the time of day right now, there is sunlight coming in that you can probably see hitting me directly over here. Yeah, there's sunlight. But in general, this is how much light is lighting my shots. You just don't need you don't have to have a big light. Like that was for me that was a big problem when I first started streaming, was like, oh my god, like I didn't have this camera yet. The best camera I had for this was actually my iPhone, because iPhones do great in low light, and you can connect an iPhone to OBS. So that's what I would do for the longest time, because I just couldn't handle this. This is a tiny ring light. I can't do that. That's, this is what we see. If you're, the content creator, like when you're on that side of the lens, you don't see what's, keeping this guy lit up. And it's usually something like this. Maybe not a ring light. Like for me, I had these other, I have light kit lights because I'm a professional photographer and videographer. So I have, giant lights with umbrellas and all these things and soft light stuff. I can't do it. I tried. I would bring that stuff in here and I'd be like, okay, this is looking good, cool. But it's so bright in here. I'm supposed to play music like this. Like I can't play music like this on the surface of the sun. It's so bright. So I don't. I did that. So I did the iOS thing for quite some time, which does as good as this camera in this light. And then it's on to that one, and it'll make this shot brighter. I've actually got it probably like down like a click, like little exposure compensation going on up there. I don't know, but for me, that's just personally how I do things. You've also got this LED light strips that they were like, I don't know, $1.50 from somewhere, Amazon or something, and between the screens, the LED strips, and that lamp, it's plenty of light. Plenty of light to have a video camera there and do all the video stuff that you need to do. It's plenty. And like for live streaming, etc. And that, I think that rounds out, what is happening in here at this workstation. The main thing is to be able to, sit down and do a thing. So we are 32 minutes in. Good God. If you're watching this, dude, props to you. We're gonna give you a bonus right here as I drop my little camera on the floor. So we've been listening to this project. What we're gonna do is erase it. First, I'm gonna save it as something else. We'll call it Schlep. I'll save it as something else. I'm gonna select everything and delete everything. So let me see what my click is. I'm gonna grab a guitar. We're gonna track some shit. I'm gonna show you how fast and how fast it happens and why we have all this stuff right here. Right? So the first, we'll put a nice little center guitar. Make sure record enabled. Two, three, four. Turn that click up a little bit louder. You want to hear it? Let's give it to you too so you can hear it. We'll all hear it a little louder. Yeah, something like that should work. So I can set, and I do oftentimes have controllers to my feet set up for this different stuff, for pushing the buttons. I can reach out to the side here and I can use this push controller. You can see these are all lit up red. And when I push that button, it's going to start recording. If I have the fixed length button over here selected, it's going to do just whatever size loop I say. I don't usually do that. I think I'm too lazy for that. Like, I want to get into it even faster than having to decide what loop length I do. So usually I'll just use my mouse, because I can go wham, you'll see me do it. I just bop on the top of the mouse. I can stop, undo there, bop, and go if I'm retaking stuff. So let's see what happens. Wrong notes, right? So right away. Wrong notes again. So there's your loop. Grab the next guitar in this case is a Kiesel. So we're gonna do a center mid gain, this on the Kiesel, a left high gain channel on the Kiesel, and then a right 7-string high gain channel, and then we'll drop some Les Pauls in there maybe. Bad note. That doesn't sound like high gain either, does it? Yeah, we change this around sometimes. So we'll grab a different, these are Friedman models coming out of THU. Everybody loves some THU, I know I do. So let's get, that'll work. Played it bad. Now we'll go 7-string. Let's make sure we have a heavy amp this time. Let's go get a Mesa. Played it bad. Oops, I didn't even stop it, did I? Grab this Les Paul now. We'll do it again. We'll see how fat we can make this tone, right? Yeah, that left side is loud. Do a little bass. Now, I choose to have just one cable coming out of my inputs. So I'll switch my bass input to input 2 because input 2 is set up for my bass and input 1 is set up for my guitar. So instead of running 2 chords, I could run 2 cables, but I just don't. Let's pick this bass line. Turn that volume back up. Played it wrong. I played this thing wrong every time, don't I? There's your bass. Remember to always unplug your active pickup instruments. We'll do a little drums. I gotta turn the mic off. Now we'll grab the guitar, switch the input back, turn it all back up, and get ready to rock. Of course, I have no idea what I'm doing. This is 100% improvised. We started at minute 33, I think. It's minute 39 still. So what was that, 6 minutes, 5 minutes? Let's say 7 minutes for safe measure. It took us all of 7 minutes. Notice too, I keep reaching down and turning on and off mics and stuff like that. That's the LPD-8 from Akai. I think I skipped right over that earlier, didn't I? So that's an extra bonus for anybody who hung around this long in the video gets to see a close-up of the Akai and this beautiful sunburst. Boosh! This is how the microphone goes on and off. Off, on. The guitar too. Right? The reverb. The reverb. Yeah, we played a little bit around when I was doing the stutter stuff. And the volume for what we're hearing behind everything. Totally integral. That controller right there. And again, you can learn all about all this stuff at my streamer school. Those courses. The first and last chapter are actually free. What's to lose? Go check them out. But so, there you have it. It took us 7 minutes to put this in. That's what I'm talking about. Hello. We can improvise a vocal. So no, we can't. We probably can't do that at all. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you've found something useful in this 41 minutes of nonsense. It's way too long for this video, but we're gonna leave it right like that, because why not? We've been listening to a click all this time. You gotta leave in the bad stuff, the good stuff. It's what makes everything fancy, you know, everything else. Cheers, y'all. Rock your day.